I think the Chinese Grand Prix was a reality check for a lot of teams, a lot of people, a lot of fans. So much went on the track and then also off the track that this might be a long video, or it could be 5 minutes, who knows. But I think we need to kind of go into the different levels of reality check. Let's start with McLaren. McLaren had an excellent race.
Grand Prix is underway with a good reaction time for George Russell, who's claimed that inside line. He's got an opportunity to dive to the inside, but Piastri was brave.
Piastri closed the door in lap 1, turn 1, just like Lewis Hamilton did in the sprint race.
And we're underway and sprinting to turn number 1. The pole sitter Lewis Hamilton chops across Max Verstappen. He needed to interrupt his momentum into the first turn. The top 3.
He literally did the exact same move against George Russell with the exact same result, and he led the race in its entirety. And that lap 1, turn 1 is something that Lando Norris really needs to learn. That was brave. It was well executed, and it was effective and efficient. And it essentially, I don't want to say it gave Oscar Piastri the race win, but it kind of gave Piastri the race win. Also, his personality is starting to come out a little bit. He's got this really dry sense of humor that's actually kind of refreshing. He's just Piastri being Piastri. A couple of quotes. I think one, he was like, there are a few too many Lewis Hamilton fans. We'll have to change that next year. And then he also said, my great-grandfather was Chinese, so I guess that this race is 1/16th my home race. It's just so cool that people are starting to relax again and have some humor. And yeah, Oscar Piastri, if you go back and you watch some of my videos, he's been one of my favorite drivers on the grid. Not just his demeanor, but his driving skills. And the reality check here is for McLaren, and it is that, hey, I'm calling it right now, you have a future world champion driver on your team, and you need to capitalize on that. And I know that it's very important that Lando Norris gets his turns and all that kind of stuff, but the way Oscar Piastri shut the door lap 1, turn 1, that can't be ignored. That's something that I know Zach Brown has been wanting Lando Norris to do for a very long time. Another reality check is for Mercedes and also the haters of George Russell. He ran, I'm going to say, a flawless race. I mean, by lap 37, I was sitting there like, my gosh, George Russell is doing an amazing job. I thought, if you watch my previous video, I thought that by lap 20, George Russell and the Mercedes would have fallen off. Didn't. Hung in there. He hung in there. And reality check for Red Bull. The reality check is that you really, truly, in this business, have to go with the person, the driver, who's giving you the best results. And Yuki Tsunoda said that a few weeks ago. He was like, yeah, results speak for themselves. Meanwhile, Helmut Marko, while I'm sure he's great at his job, I think he did some miscalculations. I'm not going to pretend to know what the reasons behind the miscalculations were, but he gave Isaac Hajar, he gave Isaac some crap, talking about, oh, this is a bit embarrassing. Well, what's actually really embarrassing is having a Red Bull finish 18th on the grid, not finishing, or just all around not doing very well. And I'm not sure if it's confirmed yet, but I think that for the Japanese Grand Prix, which is also Yuki Tsunoda's home race, Yuki Tsunoda is going to be racing the Red Bull. I'm going to check that, and if there's anything false about that statement, I'll come back to this video and put something, some subtitle or whatever in the video. But I thought, especially he's nearing 100 races, or he's at 100 races, I kind of feel like it was Yuki's turn, not Liam Lawson's. And even Max Verstappen was like, hey, Liam Lawson might be faster in the Racing Bull because it's an easier car to drive. Lewis Hamilton. So it was a reality check for Ferrari, for Lewis Hamilton, for Charles Leclerc, and for Formula One management, for Liberty Media, for Netflix. And I kind of have to break this one down a little bit. So it was a reality check for Lewis Hamilton because I think it proved that Lewis Hamilton, I think it proved in Lewis Hamilton's psyche that absolutely I still have it. I don't think that he ever thought that he didn't have it, but it really, really confirmed that he did. Why? Because it was Lewis Hamilton that suggested that Charles Leclerc pass. Lewis Hamilton needed to come into the pit for a two-stopper. Most teams did not. Matter of fact, I don't even know if any team did. And then after that, Lewis Hamilton still came within, I want to say, 3 seconds or 4 seconds of Charles Leclerc by the end of the race. Did Lewis Hamilton have to do that? I don't think so. But if you look at his comment about the yappers, I think he just wanted to shut people up. Yes, I stopped twice, but I still finished right behind Charles Leclerc. Now, there are a couple things going on with Charles Leclerc's car. One, he had some oversteer, and when he flipped back, it hit Lewis Hamilton, and that could have taken both cars out of the running. I think that the reality check is that Lewis Hamilton is still fast. He's still the GOAT. And I don't say that just because I'm a Lewis Hamilton fan. I'm saying that because statistically, he is the greatest of all time. If you want to go straight by data, he is. And so the reality check is that, Charles Leclerc, when you have an opportunity to win, yes, go forward, win, pass Hamilton. But if you're still just kind of hanging in there, guess what? You might want to fall back just a little bit because any mistake that you do can take out championship points. Now, let's talk about championship points because Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, and Pierre Gasly got disqualified. Charles Leclerc and Pierre Gasly got disqualified because both of their cars were underweight, and Lewis Hamilton got disqualified because of the bottom plank being half of a millimeter too thin. 1 kilogram underweight makes a huge difference. That is the same thing that happened with George Russell in Spa last year. That's why Lewis Hamilton ended up winning that race and George Russell ended up getting disqualified. A lot of people were like, what on earth does 1 kilogram do? It makes the car faster. And if we look at Charles Leclerc's car, he had that impact with Lewis Hamilton where he lost the end plate, and yet he was able to drive faster. The car was faster than Lewis Hamilton's car. And I think that part of that, David Coulthard pointed out that the front wing started to dip down and almost created a seal against the ground, which is kind of like a ground effect sort of thing, which is going to give you possibly, I'm not an engineer, a little more downforce over the nose. It's going to save your tires, but that speaks to Ferrari possibly not getting the setup right. And at this level, and when you're a championship contender, you have to get the setup right. And I think some of the frustration showed with both Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton if you look at some of the radio transmissions. And I think what that means in terms of reality check, I'm going to use that word again. Ferrari took a big risk. They changed up the car a lot coming into 2025. And for the sprint, qualifying in the sprint race, you saw the sheer dominance that the Ferrari car, the SF25, was able to muster. They changed something between now and then. They changed settings. They changed, probably, aero and stuff like that. And they were just slower. I had predicted based on what happened in the sprint race that at about lap 20, George Russell would fall away from third, and it would be Piastri, Lando Norris, and Lewis Hamilton all fighting for the podium. But the Ferraris just could not catch up. And, I talked about David Coulthard for a second, and I'm sorry. I know that he just lost his friend Eddie Jordan, God rest his soul. But Formula One management, and this is another reality check, Formula One management, Liberty Media, all that kind of stuff, they allowed or maybe even instructed David Coulthard to only talk about the second part of the Leclerc passing Lewis Hamilton conversation. And in reality, it was Lewis Hamilton that actually said, hey, I'm struggling. Let's have Charles Leclerc go ahead and pass me. And that was what prompted the conversation. It wasn't that Ferrari had lost faith in Lewis Hamilton, but I think that for, the last 3 years since 2021, I think that Toto Wolff, and it takes everything in me not to just say F you, dude, because I really think that he was a bad manager for the last couple of years. I think that Toto Wolff allowed for the narrative to be that Lewis Hamilton was losing a step, if not a few. I mean, the guy is 40. He just turned 40. And Toto Wolff effectively was already talking about dementia. He was like, a little bit of cognitive decline. Shut up, Toto. I'm not rude very often, but shut up, dude. That was terrible. That was terrible what you said. And I think that for the last 3 years, he allowed for that kind of narrative to be said about Lewis Hamilton. And Fred Vasseur, he called Formula One management out. Let me see if I have his quote. I'm going to continue to talk as I look through my phone. Fred Vasseur called Formula One management out, especially about the whole thing, them letting people believe that Ferrari had lost faith in Lewis Hamilton. So he said, Fred Vasseur said, this is a joke from FOM, Formula One management, because the first call came from Lewis, that Lewis asked us to swap. But to make this show, to create the mess around the situation, they broadcast only the second part of the question. Honestly, from the pit wall, we really appreciated the call from Lewis today saying, guys, I'm losing the pace. I'm keen to swap. I don't want to be harsh with all of you, but you made a huge storyline and a huge mess. You have to ask the question to Stefano Domenicali, not to me, because I'm not in charge of the broadcast. Thank you, Fred Vasseur, for bringing, some honesty and some integrity back to the broadcast, because, I was watching, I almost said Need for Speed. I was watching Drive to Survive with my wife the other day, the last, couple of episodes, and they were talking about Spa, and they were talking about how George Russell won, and they didn't follow it up. They didn't say that George Russell got disqualified. They just let it go. And if you're just watching Drive to Survive, you would actually probably think that George Russell actually won that race, and he didn't. Like, the storylines are insane, and I think that Toto Wolff just let that go. If you noticed, Lewis Hamilton's father, Anthony Hamilton, had not been coming around. Didn't see him in the Mercedes paddock, and I think that his father was probably so sickened by Mercedes' behavior that he was like, screw it, I'm not coming around here. And then he goes to Ferrari, and guess what? Angela is back, Anthony is back, the whole crew is back. I think it's because Ferrari is actually a good team under good management. I think that Mercedes, honestly, I find them, I found Mercedes' treatment of Lewis Hamilton to be disgusting. I'm just going to say it. I find it to be, disgusting. Again, it's not because I'm a Lewis Hamilton fan. It's because I'm just a fan of integrity and good racing and all that kind of stuff. Speaking of integrity, I want to go back over to Red Bull for a second. I know I mentioned that Yuki Tsunoda, I think, is going to be racing in Japan for Red Bull, and I think it was forced integrity. Liam Lawson has not done well. He's not had a good season opener. He's not had a good couple of races, and I think it's because the Red Bull is too difficult for him to drive. When they asked Yuki Tsunoda if he would drive, he was like, yeah, 100%. That car's faster. I would love to drive it. And I'm cautiously optimistic that Yuki Tsunoda is going to drive the heck out of that Red Bull car. And I think that the reality check for Red Bull is, yeah, you had some magical seasons, but Max Verstappen, he can't do it alone. He needs another driver. Maybe Checo would have been better off. Maybe it's good to try Yuki Tsunoda, but he is going to end up lower top tier, upper mid tier. Anyway, if Red Bull doesn't make changes, if they don't take stuff seriously and stop believing that they're some kind of a magical unicorn of a team, they're going to end up in 4th place, 5th place. And that magic of Max Verstappen being the greatest of all time that people are saying, which he's not. He is amazing. He's really good. But statistically, he isn't. Is he up there? Is he in the top 5? Yeah, I would say he's in the top 5. But there's the reality check that they just can't keep doing that. Leclerc came in 1 kilogram under, and with the end plate missing, he still was able to rock it. Like I said, Lewis Hamilton came up to, I think, within 3 seconds. But by lap 41, Lewis Hamilton had the fastest lap. And then lap 42, he had the fastest lap. And if I remember correctly, he was either him or Bortoleto. Was I having a fever dream, or did Bortoleto actually have the fastest lap toward the end of the race? Anyway, Lewis Hamilton, I almost say he was proving that he could still drive. I think that in the last few years, he was just sick of the yappers, as he called it. And even though I don't believe that he could have caught Leclerc and passed him, he was 20 seconds down. He came within 3 seconds or 4 seconds of Leclerc. So he shaved 17 seconds off between him and Leclerc. And I think that was, maybe it was ego, but you need ego as a racing driver. But I think it was Lewis Hamilton saying, guys, I can still drive. I have a car. Let's do this. And that's another reality check. And that is, Ferrari, you guys built a great car. I still think that there's a lot of speed to unlock in the SF25. You built a great car. You have great drivers. And I think the third piece is that you guys have to fix your strategy. If you had a 7-second lead finishing the sprint race, I would have thought that come time for the actual GP, you should at least have a 3-second lead, or you should even be faster, but you shouldn't just fall off. And that is, I think, a problem that has to do with the engineers and the strategy, the setup for the day. Now, to be fair, the sprint race was really hot, GP was really cold, and that is a huge delta to traverse in terms of setup, but all the other teams kind of, they dealt with it. Lap 35, Norris's engineer was saying this is the part of the race that is all about patience. And notably, Lando Norris was in dirty air, and he mentioned that, hey, I don't want to get back into Piastri's dirty air. And I looked, and his gap was 2.7 seconds. I always kind of thought that the dirty air scenario kind of played out between 1 to 1.5 seconds. But the fact that he made that statement at 2.7 seconds tells me that, with these ground effect era cars, the dirty air lasts for a, quite a distance. Norris he kind of had an unremarkable race. And then he ended up with a brake issue. He still got second place. And I think that I don't know who's gonna win the championship. I was pretty convinced that it's going to be Oscar Piastri, but I feel like I think it's 50-50. And reality check for Liam Lawson. He came in pretty hot with his comments and stuff. He mentioned that Abu Dhabi 2021 was his favorite race. He said he's not here to make friends, and I think that plan is working too well for him, because it doesn't look like he has any friends in Formula One. And Bierman saying ciao, I don't think that he planned that out, but it was so poignant, him saying ciao to Liam Lawson, because it turns out that it was a goodbye, because you're losing your Red Bull seat. Yeah, Ferrari. Worst tires of the top 4. Again, that speaks to strategy. And then let's talk really quickly about Tsunoda. He had front wing damage, and if you saw it, it was just kind of sticking out like that flat. And it was the opposite of Charles Leclerc's front wing damage, which seemed maybe to help his performance. Tsunoda's front wing damage, it really it looked like an air brake. And it did, in my opinion, disrupt the airflow to the brakes. So I think if the race was a bit longer, you would have seen some brake fade by Yuki Tsunoda. So there was a lot There was a lot going on. Sorry, I'm trying to read a note. Oh, here's my note. How much must race engineers drink? So I got my little Heineken Zero here. I'm not sponsored, but if you want to send me a case of Heineken Zero, I won't be mad at you. How much must Formula One race engineers drink? Because I know that, they're trying to help, but the way they get chewed out by the drivers. And you know what? You have to learn. You have to learn how to speak to the driver, because they're rocketing around in multi-million cars, millimeters away from disaster. You have to clean up how you're speaking. And the race engineers just got it. Do you get done with the race and you just sit down and, crack open half bottle of vodka and you just sit there and drink? And you go over and over again. Maybe it's the water. Oh, why did I say that? Maybe it's the water. What was I thinking? Does that happen? If you're a racing engineer, in the comments, let me know. Do you drink? I don't know. Is that relevant? Maybe I don't even want to highlight that. Again, just a ton of discoveries. I think that Red Bull is going to do better going into the Japanese Grand Prix. I think Ferrari is going to do better going into the Japanese Grand Prix. I think that McLaren is going to fix their brake issue. I think Lando Norris is going to do a little bit better. And I think I just got to give a shout out to Kimi Antonelli. He started in 8th, finished in 8th. And Oscar Bierman started in 17th, and I think he finished in the points. Amazing stuff by these rookies. And also Isaac Hedjar. Amazing run. Well, you know what? That is almost a 25-minute rant. I'm not trying to make it to 30 minutes. I think 24 minutes is enough. But anyway, that was the Chinese Grand Prix. An amazing spectacle of a race. Tons of learning. And we're kind of back to the 90s. We're back to the 90s and the 2000s when you didn't exactly know who's going to win. Yes, we had dominance. Okay. We had Schumacher. Yeah, I get it. We had Vettel. I call him Vettel. Anyway, yeah, we had dominance and all that kind of stuff, but we had some tighter races. And I think it's a reality check for the fans and for Formula One that, gone is the unicorn style seasons that we were having over the last couple of years, and we're back to business. The teams, the strategy, we have to get back to business. Even the announcers, there's no more of this, creating narratives, because people are paying attention and the races are happening, and you can't make crap up anymore. Stop it. It's not good. Okay, well, that's it. I've been Dalton. This has been the Petrolist, and you have been great. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next week. I'm out.